For our warm-up for today, what you're going to do is you have 6 reactants here. What you're going to do is predict what type of reaction is going to occur, and your choices are either synthesis, decomposition, or combustion. You're going to predict the products that are created, and you're going to balance out the equation. I put 7 minutes on the clock. I'm not going to let this video go 7 minutes. What you should do is you should hit pause on the video now. Take 7 minutes, see if you can finish these reactions. With our first reaction here, we have calcium solid and fluorine gas. The end result is we have calcium fluoride. You wouldn't be able to need to predict that it's a solid. This reaction here is known as a synthesis. And as you can see, the reaction is already balanced. So you give yourself a mark out of 3. A mark for predicting that it's a synthesis, a mark for predicting that you get calcium fluoride, and a mark for realizing that it is balanced. With our next reaction here, we have calcium oxide and water. When you put calcium oxide in water, your end result is you get calcium hydroxide. And anything that's in water is aqueous. You should be able to predict that this is aqueous. This reaction here is yet again an example of a synthesis reaction. Now if we check our balancing here, we're going to see that it is yet again already balanced. So a mark for balancing, a mark for saying it's calcium hydroxide, and a mark for saying that it is synthesis. Our third example here is aluminum oxide. Aluminum oxide breaks down to its original metals. So we've got aluminum, you should be able to predict that's a solid, plus oxygen gas. Because it's part of Haber-Finkel, you should be able to predict it's a gas. And this is an example of a decomposition. Now if we work through the balancing of this, we're going to need to put a 2 there, put a 3 here, and put a 4 here. So a mark for predicting its decomposition, a mark for getting the right products, and a mark for balancing. Our next example here is we've got lithium solid and nitrogen gas. When we put those together, we are going to get Li3N, lithium nitride, which would be a solid. You wouldn't need to be able to predict that. This is yet again an example of a synthesis. And if we work on the balancing here, let's put a 2 there and put a 6 there. Mark out of 3. Mark for predicting this is synthesis, mark for predicting the product, and mark for balancing. Our next examples here, we've got ethane and we've got oxygen. This is an example of a combustion reaction. And in every combustion reaction, you are going to end up with water as a liquid plus carbon dioxide, which is a gas. Combustion. Now if we balance that out, we'll put a 2 there. And that would be 7 over 2 oxygens. That doesn't work. So what we're going to have to do is make that a 2, a 7, a 6, and a 4. So 2, 7, 6, 4 is its balancing. Give yourself a mark for predicting its combustion, a mark for balancing it, and a mark for predicting the products. Our last example is copper carbonate. And we can tell that it has a charge of 2+, which may come in handy. We realize that the products we're going to have are copper oxide, which is a solid, plus carbon dioxide gas. And that happens to balance itself out. That is an example of decomposition. So a mark for predicting its decomposition, a mark for writing the reaction, and realizing that it's balanced, you get a 3rd mark. So that's a total out of 18.